we've held this take for a long time on this show. In the 12-team format, if you want to win a national championship, you better have a dude at quarterback. You better have a dude you trust at quarterback. Because in this era now, when you get to, let's call it the second round of that college football playoff, you might have an advantage on a talent perspective when you line it up with Penn State and SMU, or when you have, a Boise State and a Penn State or whoever it ends up being. But when you get to those even roster talent matchups, you got to have a guy behind center that can elevate you and win the football game for you when you don't have that massive advantage in the trenches or that massive advantage out wide. So if that's the case now, which quarterbacks do you trust to make the difference for you? We'll talk about it right now. First things first, if you're watching live, make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching this as a one-off clip, make sure you're dialed in. College football playoff is going to be awesome. We're going to enjoy the heck out of every single matchup. As much as we might have an objection to the seating and the committee and all that, it's going to be awesome. So make sure you're locked in. A lot of content coming for you right here on the On3 YouTube page. So I want us to rank our top 5 quarterbacks that we trust going 5 all the way up to 1 when it comes to this college football playoff bracket. Now, at number 5, you could go a lot of different ways here. Like, I almost went with Riley Leonard here. I think you can make a case for Kevin Jennings here. I think, honestly, how you feel about Indiana and Curtis Rourke and the experience factor. To me, there's too many different arguments against every single one of those guys for me to put him at 5. Like Curtis Rourke, as much as I love him and his experience, I cannot unsee that Ohio State game. Kevin Jennings, I have a question about the strength of the roster around Kevin Jennings to be able to trust him to the level I want to trust him at to go make some noise in the college football playoff. Riley Leonard, I love what he's asked to do at Notre Dame, but again, Notre Dame doesn't ask all that much of him. So if Notre Dame's not trusting him to cut it loose, it's hard for us to trust him enough to put him at 5. The quarterback that I'll put at 5 is Will Howard. Now, Will Howard, the pushback on this is, well, JD, the Michigan game is hard to unsee. It absolutely is. There's no way around that. There's a reason why we don't have Will Howard at 1 on these rankings. What I would say is, as much as that Michigan game lives in your mind, I think the Oregon performance should also live in your mind. Now, the thing that people will jump to here is, well, JD, again, he slid at the end of the game. He shouldn't have slid, and that cost Ohio State the game. Totally fair. Again, there's a reason why he's at 5 and not at 1. But I would say, in that game, to me at least, I think Will Howard answered a lot of questions. I think he answered the idea of, hey, can he be a guy to provide enough horsepower for you, to provide enough juice to these weapons, to a Jeremiah Smith, to a Emeka Egbuka, to be able to get you to where you want to go. I think situationally we've seen he can. Now, will he do it consistently? Remains to be seen. But Will Howard has too much around him, has played too much football for me to have him below 5 on this list when it comes to quarterbacks that we trust to make a run in the college football playoff. I'll also say this too. You look at this bracket, I think you're going to need a mobile quarterback to get it done. Just my opinion. Like, you look at the defensive line play you could end up having here in this college football playoff. You line it up again, any given week, I think you're going to need a mobile quarterback that can create a little bit for you to get it done. So Will Howard for us is at 5. Now, at number 4, there's some recency bias baked in here. No way around it. There's a little bit of a what have you done for me lately kind of feel when it comes to this top 5. Number 4, I got Arizona State's Sam Leavitt, man. And let's just call a spade, dude. Sam Leavitt has got some baller to him. He's got some, I don't care what coverage you're in, I don't care who you got on defense to him. Like, Ryan Russillo's got this take of, you go and look at Sam Leavitt's ESPN profile picture, he's got a gold chain to him. He plays like he's got a gold chain on, man. Like, he's got that kind of swag, that kind of moxie, kind of psychopath edge to him. I like Sam Leavitt a lot, and what he did in that in that Big 12 title game, you're going to need more of that from him in the semifinals, rather, if he ends up making it there. But the point I'm trying to make here is, I think Sam Leavitt, without his best receiver, still went out there and made plays with his legs, was able to give one-on-one shots to his guy Xavier Guillory on the perimeter. I think you're going to need that from him now, like I mentioned in the college football playoff, because when you talk about teams they're going to line it up against, going back to defensive line play, Cam Scadaboo, obviously the heart and soul of your offense. You're going to play defenses now that will stack the box and try to take him away. I'd be wildly surprised if you saw teams line it up with a 3-3-5 set against Arizona State, which, for those of y'all at home, that's 3 linebackers, 3 defensive linemen. Not nearly enough to stop Cam Scadaboo. So going back to what I just said, to get to the semis, you're going to have to beat a Texas or a Clemson, more likely than not, or just by how the bracket's shaped up. To get that done, you're going to have to ask Sam Leavitt to do what he did in the Big 12 title game, all right? I love the mobility. I love the arm talent. Like, I'm excited to watch what he does here going forward because that dude's a baller. And looks like he has a screw loose just enough to where I think he could be a difference maker for you. Put him on the field for 4 quarters. Now, this is a guy that I don't know that we would have had at 3 before last week. Drew Allar is surging, man. Like, Drew Allar, the way that I look at him, he is willing Penn State into having a passing attack. Like, their best offensive player is Tyler Warren. The backfield looked great against Oregon, no way around it. But, like, you watch Drew Allar out there, who is helping him on the perimeter? Who is the receiver you look at and say, that dude scares me, got to give him extra coverage? You say that about Tyler Warren, you don't say that about anybody else. And so the fact that Drew Allar was able to have the game he had against Oregon and to keep them in it and to score 37 points, like, that to me says a lot about just overall how he's wired and his progress at Penn State under this new system, Andy Koltanecki. Yeah, it's a little bit gimmicky. Yeah, there's some quirks to it. I love the way that they threw the kitchen sink at Oregon with how they attacked them. But, like, the one play that sticks out in my mind is it's a got-to-have a situation towards the end of the game. Penn State's driving. I want to say they're somewhere in, like, the high red. And Drew Allar has the Oregon defensive front closing in on him. And I want to say it was a defensive lineman, maybe it was a blitzer, grabs Drew Allar's shirt. And Drew Allar, like, just from his base, has nothing to step into, just all arm, throws to the end zone, delivers a strike, keeps Penn State in it. Like, plays like that, to me, Drew Allar, honestly, he reminds me a lot of, like, a Ben Roethlisberger. Little throwback for y'all there. Another quarterback from Pennsylvania, or played in the state of Pennsylvania, rather. You're going to need more of that from him. Obviously, it would be beneficial if you have the run game looking how it looked against Oregon. But if I got one drive to get us in the field goal range or to get us a touchdown to tie the game up, like, I don't know that Drew Allar isn't one of those guys that I would lean on to get it done. So Drew Allar for us is the quarterback we would trust the third most in this college football playoff field. Now at number 2, we'll get some pushback here. That's totally fine. He has done some things as of late that make you kind of squint a little bit, raise an eyebrow or two. Quinn Ewers, to me, has just been in too many big spots to not put at number 2 on this list. Like, I understand. He didn't look how you wanted him to look against Georgia, had a couple of turnovers against A&M, but, like, at the end of the day, man, Quinn Ewers has been in the big spot. So even though he hasn't delivered the way that you would like him to deliver, you still look back at the game against Alabama where he won that game for you in Tuscaloosa. I think that matters. You still look at the fact that he had you with a play to ultimately have a chance to beat Washington in the college football playoff a year ago. Won the Big 12 title. Like, there's enough situations I can point to say, okay, I feel good about Quinn Ewers being the guy taking the snap because he's been there before. Like, the heart rate for him has not elevated, even in overtime against Georgia. And the Georgia game went how it went, but, like, I trust the battle scars of a Quinn Ewers when it comes to a situation now where you got to win 4 games to win the national championship. I feel good about Quinn Ewers in that spot. It's worth noting now, first round of the college football playoff, they play a quarterback in Cade Klubnik who actually beat Quinn Ewers for the state championship in the state of Texas when they were in high school. So I wonder just a little bit if there's maybe a little bit of a personal edge for him in this game. I don't know, but that'll be fun to watch. Some storyline juice there. Quinn Ewers, the quarterback I would trust the second most. For all the flaws he's had as of late, still trust him to turn it on in the big game. Now, speaking of big games, Dillon Gabriel, man, is, I think, probably the far and away answer for the quarterback you trust the most right now in this college football playoff bracket. And you maybe wouldn't have said that early on in the year because of how long it took to get going. You have the Idaho game. You have the game against Boise State where it's a little bit too close for comfort. But, like, for all of the slow start that Dillon Gabriel had, he's right now a Heisman Trophy finalist, and he has Oregon as the number 1 team in all of college football. And the thing that I've loved from him, he has really, as of late, not tried to do too much. And not trying to do too much in Oregon's offense still gives you massive numbers. There's a reason he threw for 4 touchdowns against Penn State in this Big Ten championship. He is so under control and such a great decision maker to where if you make great decisions in Will Stein's offense, the OC at Oregon, you score points. Like, get the ball to Tez Johnson, who I've said before, I think he's Deshaun Jackson playing college football again. Get the ball to Sadiq, to Ferguson, those tight ends. Like, there's so many different ways they can attack you to where you just make the right decision, good things happen. Dillon Gabriel, to his credit now, has done a phenomenal job making the right decision. And by making the quick right decision, he's helped his offensive line. So Dillon Gabriel he's got the skins on the wall right now. Also, you talk about the game against Ohio State as the situation where he's got the big game pedigree. When he was at Oklahoma, the win over Texas, like there's some real skins on the wall for him in the big game sense, to where I feel good about him going forward as the quarterback that I trust the most in this college football playoff bracket. So to recap it here for you, a lot of guys you could put at 5. For us, Will Howard, stylistically and the Oregon performance, last play excluded, I feel good about what he can be for Ohio State with those weapons. The quarterback I would trust the 5th most in this college football playoff bracket. At number 4, gold chain wearing, pigskin slinging, transferring from Michigan State to Arizona State, Sam Leavitt is a dude. I say this a lot about Cam Ward. Sam Leavitt has got that same kind of psychopath to him. I love it. I think that'll serve them well in the college football playoff. Drew Allar, kind of a Big Ben vibe to him. The mobility, too, from Drew Allar, we neglected to mention that. He can scoot a little bit here, and it's been a major factor for him. Also, it doesn't hurt that you got a change of pace guy in Bo Breeler right behind him that can, I think, help him in some ways as well with what defenses have to account for. He's at 3. Quinn Ewers, say what you want about the last couple performances. He's got some big games under his belt. I think that'll serve him well when it's high-stakes time in this playoff. And then Dillon Gabriel, same deal. Such a good decision maker, been so smooth to this point in the year, and I think he's got Oregon obviously primed to make a run of this thing, with them being the number 1 seed in this college football playoff.